Hello, and welcome to another Small Biz Chat. My name's Jennifer Denny, and I've got Lorraine running in with me too, but that's all right.
Mm. Good morning, everybody. Oh my goodness, it was a quick morning this morning.
Busy, huh? And lots going
Absolutely,
on.
absolutely. But I am excited to be here and Google Webmaster
Yeah, this
guidelines.
this is gonna, come into my little favorite playground sometimes, SEO. I say sometimes because it's not
Absolutely.
always fun.
No. But okay, so let's talk about Google Webmaster guidelines and why does Google do it? Why have they put those guidelines out there? Why should we? I mean, why do they care what I do with my website?
Well, I think first of all, I mean, some people might not even know what webmaster guidelines are. So, the webmaster guidelines is basically a resource that Google has put out on what they feel like your website should look like, how your content should be, user friendly ideas. I mean, there's all kinds of information in there, and they've laid out basically kind of telling us how the search engines work. So you need to know what the rules are before you maybe bend them.
Hmm. Absolutely. And I mean, it is, I was looking at the guidelines and it's a great resource if you're building a website to take the time and go pieces. But then now I'm going to come back to my question. Why does Google provide that information to web design?
So I think Google provides that so that it is set up the way that Google wants it to be, so that Google can get the best search results that Google wants.
Hmm. So if you want to show up on Google search engines, if you want to be visible, then you got to,
Hi, Benny.
yes, Benny. But if you want to show up on Google search engines, you really would be foolish not to pay attention to the things Google is saying. This is important.
Yeah, they're constantly updating them. So it's not like you can just read it once and be like, that's what it is. I think you have to be careful, though, of, sometimes they're putting out updates so fast. And it's like you don't have the manpower to necessarily keep up with how, Google, this multi billion-dollar company, wants us to build our websites.
So, if you're looking for the Google Webmaster Guidelines, the cool thing is you can just search on Google and type in Google Webmaster Guidelines, and you're going to find the information.
Yep. And it's broken down into four different sections. There's the overview, the general guidelines, content specific guidelines, quality guidelines, and tons of reading inside of there for sure.
Okay, so for people, but as you look at the Google Webmaster Guidelines, what are the big things that you focus on when you're trying to audit a website?
um, I think I know those rules so well that I try to look for things that don't fall within those rules. And then I will actually take real world results, though, like, someone's actual competitor, their actual niche, and relay it to that because those guidelines are written across the board, but what's in your niche might be different than someone else. So it's not as black and white, which is SEO.
Absolutely. Um, I think one of my favorite things is content specific guidelines and the fact that they have things like best practices for images or video best practices, adding media to your website, taking a look at what they're telling you and saying, well, have I added a caption? Do I have text around it? You know, uh, some of it's just a really, like you said, it's a really nice checklist, and things you should be thinking. Don't embed important information. Sure. Make sure it's supported in the text of
Yeah.
the words of the page.
And I think I probably use it in the most whenever somebody is saying, "Oh, well, this is the way it should be." I'll give a case study. Like recently, I came across a very large company, you say content, and they were producing the exact same content for a bunch of websites across the United States,
Mm-hmm.
and they were trying to interpret the guidelines that was okay. And so that's when you get into that like back and forth. I'm like, it's clearly not unique content, so why would they rank that if even in the same city two different companies are using the exact same content? There's no benefit to that
Yeah.
other than maybe posting it on social media, but it's not helping you from an SEO standpoint. I don't think they like that though, that I called it out.
Conversation with a client this week, and it's the same thing. It's a national chain that provides resources for their local dealers, and it's a great time saver. And it to them and saying, hey, times they're literally publishing the same to multiple, and it has zero SEO value.
Yeah, it could have value in that you get to post it on organic social media. And so it's like posting something rather than nothing. But to me, it's kind of the bottom of the barrel. Like, let's get something out rather than nothing out. It's not going to help you.
Absolutely. The other thing that I loved, and I'm going to jump around because, we really promised to talk about the guidelines,
Yeah.
that there's a whole section on how to, if you really want to get geeky, on site maps and meta tags and JavaScript. So even for, there's some stuff I think that's for the very geeky, and some
Uh-huh.
stuff is just for everybody.
Well, I think that really outlines how there are so many different little tiny things that you can do that all add up. I think content in general is an overarching item, but there's a lot there. I like how they go through kind of like the quality guidelines and sneaky redirects and cloaking and doorway pages and I think they really try to stay on top of how people are trying to manipulate the search engines. I know one earlier you talked about was AI content earlier this week.
Oh yeah.
I don't see it on there yet, but I'm sure they will add it because they did come out and have their opinion on it. And so, it's, you got to keep up with all of that stuff.
Absolutely. And I think, I say this a lot to small business owners. Google wants you to be successful. They have things like the Google Webmaster guidelines. They have business resources. They're giving you everything you need to be successful. Of course, they hope eventually you'll line up an advertisement. But to
Right.
take advantage of these tools is crazy.
Yeah, yeah. They even have an SEO starter guide. So if you've never heard of SEO before, or you're not sure what it means, I always say it's important to know the source and understand the source before you go and manipulate it. So instead of maybe paying attention to everybody else, make sure you understand what Google is saying before you pay attention to everybody else.
Absolutely. Well, I'm actually going to put a link to Google, if I find my, oh, there we go. Oh, we have comments, but I don't. Oh, you have to see the comments because you logged us in that started us this morning.
Yeah. So Corey says somehow lost connection. I'll check this out later if you
Oh.
post it and try promote. So thanks, Corey.
Thanks, Corey. Well, if you could put the link, I've got it.
Yeah,
See.
I've got it
Oh,
up
wait a minute.
right now. So I will just
Hold on.
post that in
Let's
there. Ah, you've got it.
to the developers guides from Google. So you can, if you're curious about what's in the guidelines, check it out.
Yeah, and I just added the SEO starter guide too. So if you're curious about that as well, that lots of reading inside there.
Absolutely. Okay, everybody. We'll see you next week.
All right, take care.
Bye now.